We're getting close to the end of this week's Bullseye, but before we go, a recommendation. The segment's called The Outshot. So there are different kinds of laughter. You laugh at a joke, you laugh in relief when you're startled, you laugh to reinforce a social bond. The other day I was in my cabin and I was reading, and I found myself laughing out loud at, I guess just at audacity.
I think when you're young, you should be a lot with yourself and your sufferings. Then one day you get out where the sun shines and the rain rains and the snow snows and it all comes together. It came together for me in New York during the Roaring '20s. I was going to make myself the most popular girl in the world.
That's Diana Vreeland from her autobiography, DV. Or actually, it's an actor reading from the transcripts of the interviews she did that made up her autobiography from a documentary that was based on that autobiography. But anyway, the point is the audacity. But when it comes to Diana Vreeland, the audacity carries the day. You could say that Vreeland was a fashion editor, but that certainly undersells her. She was the fashion editor. She was a transformational figure who carried women's style from the Edwardian to the modern. She convinced the world to wear blue jeans and bikinis. She ran Harper's Bazaar and then Vogue and changed them both forever. She lived clear through the 80s, leaving a trail of astonished onlookers behind her. She was born in Paris in 1903, and like most parts of her life, she has an amazing quote about that.
Where do I begin? The first thing to do, my love, is arrange to be born in Paris. After that, everything follows quite naturally.
She grew up just this side of rich and stayed just this side of rich throughout her life. A sort of second-tier aristocracy with coming-out seasons and baronesses hanging around and trips from London to Paris to visit Chanel and get some clothes made. And horses, of course. Plenty of horses.
And there was a great deal of, I suppose, what we call decadence. But of course, I didn't see any of that. I only saw the horses.
It's enough to make you resent her if she wasn't so madly charming. The autobiography is dizzy and hilarious and as bright as the red walls in her townhouse in New York. It feels like you're listening to the most amazing dinner guest ever holding court, and that's because you are. It's Vreeland's side of Conversations with George Plimpton, transcribed and buffed up a little and left out in the sun to dazzle. In her work and in the book, she argues again and again for the aesthetic, not because of the value of craftsmanship or artisanship or even as a tribute to the wonder of God. None of the serious, sober-minded reasons to appreciate beauty, but because the aesthetic, the exciting, the beautiful, the social, they're what makes life worthwhile. All of a sudden, reading the book, the search for red nail lacquer and the man who made the strongest and the deepest and the reddest red nail lacquer in his travels across continents and his disappearance all kind of blend together into something like a coherent worldview. You believe that picking out the things and thoughts that sparkle and dazzle and take the breath away is a pursuit worth pursuing.
At the same time mannequins became personalities in the 60s, personalities became mannequins. Ravishing personalities are the most riveting things in the world. Conversation, people's interest, the atmosphere that they create around them, these are the only things worth putting in any issue.
You honestly wonder, reading the book, what she thought of her kids. She had some. They're barely mentioned. She adored her husband, though you don't get much sense of why. She seems completely disinterested in things like her paycheck or the circulation of her magazines, or for that matter, class or social justice or politics. The Duke and Duchess of Windsor were as aesthetically brilliant as she was, so great. They're wonderful. Jackie Onassis, same thing. Whoever else, not so much. Diana is focused on her next nightgown fitting. And by the way, 5. She had 5 fittings for each nightgown. But it doesn't feel like a rejection of practical things so much as an embrace of the value of something else. Vreeland's commitment to beauty in clothing and art and conversation and red fingernail lacquer is so sincere and brilliant that you are swept up into it. And while you're on the ride, only beauty matters. It's what Diana Vreeland was meant to do, and she did it brilliantly. We should all be so blessed as to see the beauty in the world that clearly.
There's only one very good life, and that's the life that you know you want and you make it yourself.
That's my outshot.